Let's review how to do the ABC analysis according to the data we have in our case. As you repeat, this is our database, the point of start of our analysis. We have these different columns, so the project code, the order number, where the movement in inventory, to which the movement on the inventory refers to, the supplier code, so the supplier, internal or external, that has supplied the type of components we have an inventory, the description of the components, the consumption in euros, and the consumption in quantity. Here, if we put a filter, we can see the different type of items that are included in our inventory, which are, you see, a lot. We first want to draw an ABC analysis according to the consumption. So classify this item in the A, B, and C class according to the consumption. So what we have to do is to position here and click Insert and Pivot Table. You see, Excel automatically selects the table because you recognize the data. Just click OK, and here you have a pivot table. In the pivot table, you need to tell Excel what you want in the lines and what you want in the columns and what you want, at the cross of this value. In particular, we want to analyze the item. So if I put the items in the lines, you see that all the different items that are present in the database are listed. Of course, duplicate are not reported. So here, independently for how many times they are present in our database, they are just reported once in our pivot table, and we want to analyze their consumption. You see that if you just drag and drop consumption in the quadrant of values, we have obtained the sum of consumption. If we put quantity, we also have the sum of quantity. Of course, if you transform it in dollars, of course these are euros in this case, okay, you see better the value for each time item. For example, for cables are reported that we have a consumption in inventories of 32,000 euros for 2015 and 2016 for a quantity of 1,099 units. Now, what you have to do is to analyze and classify the items according to this value. So open a new Excel sheet, name it ABC consumption, copy and paste the first two columns, included the total, paste it here. So here you have the list of the item and the consumption value. First thing you have to do is to put them in decreasing order from the highest one to the lowest one. You see, you have first the total, and then you have the items from the most relevant in terms of consumption for the lowest one. Now, what you want to do is to calculate the cumulative value of consumption according to this order. Again, first period is this one, second period is this one, plus the consumption of steelwork, materials and fabrication. Then in the second period is this one plus this one, third period this one plus this one, and so on. Again, please verify that Excel is doing something interesting, like in this case, so it's correct. So it's 75 plus 8 is 83, 83 plus 7 is 91, 91 plus 7 is 98, so you can trust Excel and you can then now drag and drop and obtain the right value of this. Okay. This is in the cumulative value, I mean in the absolute value. If you want also the cumulative value in terms of percentage, you just have to do this one, ratio the total, and you need to block the cell like this with the dollar sign, and if you just click here, you see that you accumulate the value until you reach 1. You can transform it in percentage. So you see that just considering the first item, you explain 22% of consumption of your inventory, then considering the second one, 32, 39, 44, 49, 54, and so on. Now we need to classify the ABC, classify the items in the ABC category. What we use, as I repeat, is the marginal increase rules. The marginal increase rules tell you that you first have to calculate the average value of consumption. So you have these different items and you have value of consumption for each item you have in inventory. Just calculate the average. So sorry, it's in Italian, I write the Italian command, or this is just average. So you type average of this, and you see that on average, each category you have in inventory, each item you have in inventory, the average consumption is 1,446,000 euros. According to the marginal increase rules rule, all the items that have a consumption which is higher than this value are classified as A. So A item will be this one for sure, until you reach an item that has a lower value than this one. So this is okay, this is okay, these are okay until this one. So mechanical engineering 3D model stress analysis is 1,230,000, so it's lower than this one. So it means that all the items from fabrication and erection and steel stack are A. If you write A at the end, at the beginning, at the end, and you just click here, you automatically identify this one. Then again, so this is the average value of consumption of A items plus B items plus C item, and this allow you to identify the A items. Now, to identify which are B and which are C, you need to calculate the average value of consumption of just the remaining items, so the B and the C. It means that calculating the average of these values. First item which is excluded from the A class to the last one. So 300,000 euros. So it means that all the items that will have a higher value than this one will be B items, and all the others are C items. In our case, the first B item is mechanical engineering, and the last one is here. You see that? Piping fabrication, because piping fabrication is the last one, having a value of consumption of 247,000. Then we have air damper, which is lower tube studding and accessory, which is lower than the value. So it means that these items are all B class items and the remaining one are all C items. Now check the evidence. I mean, just considering the A items, which are, I mean, you have number of different items. In order to calculate the number of different items you have in your database, you just have to count, so count the value. So use the count formula in Excel, count values, and you select the first row, the first column. So you have 116 different items, so just count of how different value you have, while instead you have number of items in class A. You need to use the count if, so use the count if command. You need to count if this one so this interval equals to A. And we block the interval. Okay, so we have 116 different items and just 21 are class A. So it means that if you make the ratio between 21 and 116, it means that 80% of the items you have are able to explain 88% of the value of your consumption, because you have 18, so 21 items, which sum up the 80% of consumption. So in the case of this company, the ABC curve is a 1888 curve. So 80% of the item explain the 80% of the value we have under our analysis. If you want to complete our reasoning, number of items in class B are, you copy and paste the command with the same interval, just putting B on that, and number of items in class C are the remaining one, so just copy and paste the command and put C on that. So 21 items made the 80% of the volume. If we just sum up the class B item, which are this one ratio this one, so 24% of the total item. So just, I mean, considering 42%, so less than the half of the items that are present in our inventories, so the class B item, we reach 97.89% of the inventory explanation. So if we just consider less than the half of the item, we are able to explain 98% of the movement in our inventory. This clearly gives you priority, because if I want to improve our inventory management policy, of course, we need to focus our attention first on the A item, so of the 21 items that make the 80% of the inventory value, and then when I have, optimize this management, then I can focus our attention on the B items. Of course, I need to understand that I have 76 items in my inventory which are a lower value of consumption, so which determines a lower level of consumption for our inventory. So we need to understand if it makes sense to carry everything like this, or if we can rationalize some of them, because our inventory is made for the 42% by less than the half of the real inventory. Also, draw a core. The ABC core for our company is just a matter of, if you see here, just a matter of selecting this data and making, including an histogram. You see here you have two series, one of consumption value, one of cumulative curve, and one series. So the consumption value is an histogram, while instead the cumulative curve is a line trend. But don't get overwhelmed, because you just have to select, if you have two series, and to change the type of graph. You see, it's a matter of, like, look what happened. If I say that I want a line, just go here and it's transformed in a line. Or if I want an histogram, it's just a matter of transforming this into an histogram, and it transforms everything into an histogram. So, okay, you see that? Okay, here you see exactly what we saw. So until steel stack, which is here, you see here, until steel stack, we have class A item, which explain 148 million euros of consumption. And just considering this type of items, I'm able to optimize, or at least to understand which is the situation of my inventory. And then I have prioritized intervention, and then I know that the other one are less relevant ones. As I told you, in this case we just did this exercise on consumption. While instead I can also use the volume, because if you look at the initial database, we also have the quantity. So again, if we just select on the pivot table the quantity, we can do the same thing with the volume. So understanding which are the items that are not determining the most relevant consumption value in terms of dollar or euros, but which are determining the most quantities to be moved. So while consumption give me prioritization in terms of, if I improve this item, I have a good impact on the economic side because higher consumption are involved. In this case, this gives priority in terms of logistic activities. Here we have local transport, so movement of items which are locally stored in warehouses. As you see here, I have 48,000 units. So if I try to rationalize the quantity moved and consumed during these 2 years, I have, a more efficiency in terms of logistic activities, organizational logistic activities of the company. So here the reasoning is the same. So you display the value, you display them in descending order, you calculate the cumulative value, then you make the percentage, and you classify the categories in different classes according to the marginal the marginal increase rule. In this case, we have that 3,613 is the average quantity moved for each items. The higher one are class A, the lower one are B and C. The remaining have an average of 1,231, and the higher one are class B, the remaining one are class C. In this case, while, if you remember, for class A, for the consumption, the curve was 1888, in this case the curve is 2173, meaning that class A items are 24 items, so these items are 24 in numbers, and they explain the 72% of the quantity moved every 2 years in this case. So it means that this is in case the case of a 2173 curve. So just addressing these 24 items, I'm able to explain 73% of the movement in my warehouses. If I add the big class items, so I just consider 58, so exactly the half of the items I have in inventory, I'm able to explain up to 92 of the movement of my inventories. As I told you, of course, in order to understand which action to put in place, we can combine the classification according to the consumption in the classification according to the volume. So if you go in the sheet of ABC multi-criteria, you see that for each items, I have reported the class of the consumption and the class of the volume, meaning that higher consumption has an impact on the economic side, higher volume has an impact on the logistics side. And I am realize what is called ABC multi-criteria matrix. Here I'm counting how many items are AA in volume and consumption, how many items are B in consumption and A in volume, how many items are C in consumption and A in volume, how many items are B in volume and C in consumption, and so on. And I discovered that the most covered quadrant are this one, so higher in consumption and higher in volume, this one lower in consumption and lower in volume, this one, so average consumption, average volume and low consumption, and it's almost all done. And here I have put some strategy in order to manage to cope, to understand what to improve. As already told in class, of course, first priorities will be given to this quadrant. I mean, a high volume and high consumption means that for these 13 items, optimizing the management of the inventory will have both logistics and economic impact. So if I lower the inventory, I have low consumption coming from inventory, which means improving the income statement and the balance sheet on the inventory side. But also, if I decrease, for example, inventory, I also have less impact and less overload for logistical activity. So here is the quadrant where evaluation of opportunity can be very, very important. But also, in this case, here you have items which are higher in volume and average in consumption. I mean, they still have economic impact, but of course less than AA, but I mean they are A in volume, so improving in volume, so optimizing the volume put in inventory, so decreasing the volume means also decrease the overload of logistical activities. And then I also have highlighted this one because this is quite interesting. I mean, here I have many items which have a low consumption in terms of value, so they are not so relevant from an economic perspective, but I mean they are moved in high quantity. So this is not so good because it means that I'm occupying space with something which has a low value. So maybe it's worthwhile to try and understand if we can optimize the quantity of this type of items in order to improve the overload of logistical activities. Please consider that the ABC analysis is just a point of start, so we are just making the hypothesis according to this classification. How much these hypotheses are feasible or not, I mean, we need to identify, to verify The ABC analysis is just a classification tool. So you classify items and you identify how to prioritize. Then which type of levers needs to be activated and so on. Needs to be, of course, be a deep dive with more detailed analysis than these descriptive ones.